it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say, stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools and by reports, 6 hours. Let's say it's 3 hours.
That's suspect.
What's up, everybody? Jackson here, and I want to be careful and direct with this one from the start. This clip features Charlie Kirk, who was murdered last September. And before anything else, political assassination is evil, full stop, regardless of who the target is or what they believed. This isn't commentary on his death or the ongoing criminal case against the person charged with it. What this clip actually shows is Kirk, 5 days after October 7th, asking on camera whether there had been a stand-down order within the Israeli government and describing a specific policy idea as a form of ethnic cleansing. I want to look at what he actually said, what's since been reported about pressure inside his own movement over similar questions, and keep those things clearly separated from the unrelated criminal case. Stick with me, get that like in, get subscribed, because precision matters, especially on something this serious. Now, let's get into it.
So what is really going on? So then I go a layer deeper, and I'll turn it over to you, is, okay, did Israel... almost, because I'm talking to this other guy and he says, I said, you realize what happened in 2014? He says, yeah. I said, 2014 when they, the three girls were kidnapped and then, whatever happened, raped, travesty.
Horrible.
And then Israel comes back and kills 2,000 people. He said, it should have been 20,000. It should have been 200,000. So I said, where are you going with this? He says, well, listen, here's what I'd like to see happen in Israel. What's that? Only Jews live in Israel. Nobody else. We don't need to coexist. It's just not going to work out. Is this a way for Netanyahu's legacy to be he eliminated Hamas? Is this his way for saying, now I got the card. I got the,
mandate.
Get out of jail card for me to go straight up 100,000 on the blockade of Gaza Strip, 300,000 reservists you put up there. Now we're going to go groundwork. We're going all freaking out because the world gave us the permission to do so. Is that what it is? I don't know. I just keep continuing to have a lot of questions the more I think about it because so these guys are coming up. So what, are we going to have another 9/11? And they're going to come and do what? They're going to go into your community. What are they going to target next? Where are they going to go next? What's going to happen next? Oh, it's not a big deal. It's never happen again. Well, that's what we thought it was never going to happen, 9/11. Before 9/11 happened, nobody thought 9/11 was going to happen.
Yep.
So I just have way too many questions that makes me think about what the motives are. And if we go dark, I'll put all those things out there.
Yeah.
How did these guys not know this was taking place?
So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier. Right, the whole country is surveilled, and so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu is basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here. But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand-down order? Was there a stand-down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say, stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools and by reports 6 hours. Let's say it's 3 hours.
That's suspect. Go ahead, Rob.
It's also not like a right-wing reporting. This is from the New York Times. The long
Thank
wait
you.
for help as
Look at
massacre
this.
unfolds in Israel.
9
I can't think of a
hours.
more liberal news outlet than the New York Times.
And by the way, I'm actually very pro-Israel. So let me be very, so I'm not exact.
Well, I think we all are.
No, I just want to make sure my position is clear here. But so Patrick, there are other explanations. It's possible that the Netanyahu government was double-crossed by bad agents. Okay? That's dark, but it's not as dark as what we're talking about. Okay? Another aspect is that Netanyahu might have traitors in his government, like legitimate traitors that have infiltrated. I was texting with some senior people in the IDF, and they said, Charlie, can't say too much, but let's just say the same problem you have with the left in America, we have here in Israel. So there's something to think about. Just something to think about, right? Is that maybe there's some people within those intel agencies that aren't as sympathetic. Or maybe, Patrick, maybe they might have gotten a tip. They might have gotten whispers, but no one thought it would be 1,200 Jews dead. That's a potential, right? Because here's the essence of it. The essence is this. This is the closest thing to the Holocaust that any of us have lived through. But the fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard right government has a mandate. I got to be careful the way I say this. They're going to try to ethnically cleanse Gaza.
Yep.
I mean, I don't use that term lightly, okay? They're talking about basically removing 2.5 million people from there, okay? And honestly, they have a mandate to go seek justice and revenge. They do. This idea that they need to have a truce or a peace treaty, that's morally crap after you see women and children be burned alive and dragged to the streets. But there are some serious questions here, Patrick. And let me tell you, my pattern recognition over the last 5 years has become pretty sharp. COVID, Maui fires, Epstein. When I see a story and it doesn't click, our guts are usually right.
Yeah, this one's very weird.
Can I comment on the when you use the term ethnic cleansing, that will make the hairs on the back.
I'm not
of your
accusing them of that.
I'm just saying that term. I actually did some research specifically on that because that is a very slippery slope. And if you actually want to talk about what Jews and even Christians should be most fearful of, Muslims as well, is the concept of ethnic cleansing.
So I just want to be very sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
I'm saying that's what they're going to be accused of.
Correct.
But if there are some people in public life in Israel that, Patrick, what did your pilot guy say? I want only Jews in Israel, right? Okay, that is a form of ethnically cleansing because 20% of Israel is Arab. Muslim.
Correct.
20%.
And people don't know that. And I've been to Israel several times. I was there a few months ago, and I saw the protests.
Yes.
If you don't have to be expert at Israeli politics to understand the divisiveness of politics, especially in America. We understand like Republicans, Democrats, blacks, white, whatever it is. Similar in Israel, there's the liberal faction, mostly based in Tel Aviv, and more the conservative faction in Jerusalem and throughout the country. And obviously, the more orthodox you are, the more you're inclined to be more right-wing thinking. But I think civil war is a little premature, but there is major contention going on there.
The country was at a fissure point. Yeah, right. It was splitting.
No doubt. Just like there was calls for potential civil war here. I sort of think that's a little aggressive.
But you would agree it was hot. The country was hot.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Just like the BLM riots here.
Yeah, it was not a time for unity in Israel.
The thing that I think just to think about when you talk about, I'm not saying you're accusing anything, that you just use the term. So the concept of ethnic cleansing is the biggest fear of the Jewish people. Okay? It's the whole reason that Israel was founded, because of the ethnic cleansing that occurred throughout Europe for millennia, right? Obviously culminating with World War II. But there's no doubt that that Israel could wipe out Gaza at any given point. But they do not want to participate in ethnic cleansing. Now, they would love to annihilate the terrorists, But if you actually talk about what's going around the world today, and this is what Israel needs to kind of take note of.
That's what I was talking about, Patrick. I'm sorry to interrupt.
This is a protest.
But in the summer, this every day, there were people in the streets.
Yes,
I saw this.
July of
the
2023.
country was separating.
Got
I mean,
you.
this is such a hotbed issue right now. But if you talk about ethnic cleansing, look at what's going on in Azerbaijan and Armenia.
No,
Pat,
that's right.
something that
110,000 Armenian Christians.
nobody's
being
talking about that.
Yeah.
We've seen over the last couple decades, what happened in Bosnia. They were Bosnian Christians were killing Muslims. We've seen what's going on in Myanmar. Nobody talks about that. Okay. Christians are actually, there's an article right here from the Cato Institute. Who are the most persecuted people in the world? Well, it's actually Christians. You've probably done your research on this.
I talk about it all the time.
You go to Afghanistan, you go to Iraq, you go to Iran,
China.
you go to China, you go to Nigeria. They're killing Christians. Here it is right here from the Cato Institute.
That's right.
Okay, so the whole concept of ethnic cleansing, I think temperatures need to go down because it's not egalitarian.
Yeah, no,
people are killing people for multiple reasons.
And here's Israel's difficulty, is that Hamas, they build their headquarters under hospitals.
Correct.
They use humans as human shields.
Yeah.
And so civilians are going to die, and that is a tragedy. And Hamas brought this upon themselves. My wish, my plead to Israel is be precise, be focused in your retaliation. You have a moral right to go and seek the blood of the people that did this. Mm-hmm. What I think would be bad for Israel, and I have a heart for Israel. I can't tell you what it did. It made me a stronger Christian in a way I can't even tell you, right? Be able to see where our Lord rose from the dead. My heart for Israel is that they don't overreact.
Let me start by restating the line I opened with, because it matters more than anything else in this breakdown. Political violence is evil, and nothing in this clip or this commentary should be read as connecting Kirk's murder to anything discussed here. The reporting on the criminal case describes a specific defendant, extensive evidence, including eyewitness accounts and video, and an ongoing judicial process. That case stands entirely on its own, and treating it as connected to any political or financial pressure Kirk may have experienced would be irresponsible speculation, not journalism. Now to what Kirk actually said in this clip. He raised the specific, pointed question whether there had been a stand-down order during the initial hours of the October 7th attack, citing the gap between the attack's start and Israel's military response. That's a factual, checkable question about timeline and military response. And it's worth noting he wasn't alone in raising it. He referenced New York Times reporting on the delayed response as part of his reasoning. Whether that delay reflects intelligence, failure, deliberate policy, infiltration concerns he mentioned hearing about from IDF contacts, or simple military logistics is a real, disputed question that's been examined by multiple investigative bodies since, and it's worth checking current reporting and any official Israeli inquiry findings directly rather than treating either explanation as settled from a single 2023 conversation. On the ethnic cleansing comment, Kirk was specifically referring to a stated goal by someone he'd spoken with of maintaining Israel as exclusively Jewish, despite roughly a fifth of Israel's population being Arab citizens. Whether that specific policy framing accurately constitutes ethnic cleansing under international legal definitions, or whether it reflects a narrower political position within Israeli politics, is worth examining directly rather than accepting either the label or a dismissal of it without more context on what specifically was being described. The claim in the surrounding commentary that raises a legitimate question, worth checking on its own facts, is the timeline of professional consequences within conservative media for similar questions raised later. The claim that Candace Owens was removed from the Daily Wire in March of 2024 following criticism of her commentary on this conflict is a documented, reported event worth verifying against contemporaneous reporting if you want the full context. I want to be clear and separate here. As the original clip itself notes, whatever happened with that particular departure, Owens's subsequent public statements moved well beyond policy criticism into anti-Semitic conspiracy territory, which is a completely different and much more serious problem than raising a timeline question. And the two shouldn't be conflated or treated as equivalent casualties of the same phenomenon. On the claims about Kirk's private communications and a reported donor relationship worth $2 million annually tied to pressure over guest bookings, these are specific, serious claims about internal organizational pressure, and if accurate, they'd be a legitimate story about how financial relationships can shape which questions get asked publicly within any political media ecosystem, not unique to one side. But given the gravity of attaching this to a person who was murdered, I'd want to see this corroborated through multiple independent reporting sources with direct access to the material described, rather than accepting a single characterization of private messages as fully settled. Here's what I'd leave you with. The actual substantive question Kirk raised in 2023 about how quickly a state responds to an attack and what that response time reveals is a legitimate and separate question from anything involving his death or the ongoing criminal case. Keeping those two things clearly apart isn't just good practice, it's the only responsible way to discuss either of them. So tell me, do you think a media ecosystem's tolerance for hard questions genuinely shifts over time based on outside pressure, or is that harder to prove than it looks from the outside? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more of these careful breakdowns, get subscribed, because that's exactly what this channel is here for.